8:06 at 55 KRC, the talk station. And a very happy Wednesday to you. Brian Thomas inviting you out to lunch. We're going to be at Cabana on the River today. Listener lunch out about kicking off summer. And I know from the area code, Mr. Thomas Massie, Congressman Thomas Massie, he will not be in town. You're in Washington, D.C. right now, and for good reason. Welcome back to the program, Congressman. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Thanks for having me, Brian.
Wow, and where to begin? I guess let me just start with this. I know you had an NSA briefing yesterday. You probably have more information than you could actually reveal because, of course, it was a private closed meeting. But I'm looking at a stack here, and on one side I have bipartisanship. Dianne Feinstein, along with Speaker of the House John Boehner, calling this guy calling him a traitor. The guy that basically, I would argue, confirmed everything that we sort of thought in the back of our minds, that we were being spied on, in essence, Mr. Snowden. And on the other side, a couple of people who I have a tremendous amount of respect for, Judge Andrew Napolitano and Rand Paul, Senator Paul, both saying he's more of a hero than a traitor. I'm going to put you on the spot, Congressman Massie, but where do you come out on this?
Well, I've already come out on this. And first, let me say, we don't know everything about Mr. Snowden. There's a lot of stuff still yet to come out.
True.
But I can say this. If it weren't for him, we wouldn't be having this discussion.
Exactly.
And there are a lot of people who are enraged, upset about the revelations. But at the same time, how can you be enraged about the revelations and then be mad at Mr. Snowden? They want to shoot the messenger, and I don't think we should shoot the messenger.
Well, and the argument that is being made is it was this NSA compilation and keeping they are retaining the so-called metadata: who we called, when we called, how long the conversation lasts, where we were when we called. Information that is absolutely frighteningly revealing. Heck, even Joe Biden said back in 2006 that, quote, "I don't have to listen to your phone calls to know what you're doing. I know every single phone call you made. I'm able to determine every single person you talk to. I can get the pattern about your life," and that is very, very intrusive. That's Joe Biden. He's one of their guys.
Yeah.
So,
well, let me say something else. So far, everything that he's revealed has turned out to be true.
Yes.
So nobody has denied it yet. But as recently as 2 or 3 months ago, the director of National Intelligence, Mr. Clapper, came to Congress and lied to us. He was specifically asked by Senator Wyden, "Are you collecting data on millions or hundreds of millions of Americans?" And he said no.
No. The video is there for all to see, and he looks nervous, and he's scratching his head, and someone said, I think it was a Daily Show that lampooned him for his just absolute apparent lying, saying, anybody that has a tell like that, you should be playing a poker game with him. Jeez, it's awful.
But so here's the question. The big question here, the big issue is, do you think it's okay? Do you think it's ever okay for your government to lie to you?
No.
Is that okay? Because if you accept that premise, we've gone over the cliff. If the American public accepts that it's okay for the government to lie to the American public, then we're in big trouble.
Well,
and this guy came to Congress and lied to Congress.
Well, I guess he had another option, didn't he, Congressman Massie? He could have defended himself in a prepared statement and then taken the fifth.
He could have. Well, no, he was. Yeah, I guess he could have. But just to be a little bit cute there, but
wow.
He could have said that's classified information and I can't talk about it.
Exactly.
In fact, I specifically, I can't tell you what the answer was, but in our classified briefing yesterday, I asked the Deputy Attorney General and all the folks who were there. I asked them if that was okay. And I'd love to share their answer, but I can't.
Well, I think I know what the answer is. It is okay in the minds of some people. And this comes down to the fundamental question. The people who are arguing that Snowden's a traitor, the people who are arguing this is a big breach of national security, are arguing that this was lawful. And under the Patriot and subsequent like the FISA, they established these courts that we don't know anything about, and we're not allowed to know anything about, all this cloaked in secrecy, that there's these protections in there. But that it was lawful. Congressman Massie, I look at the Constitution and contrast the Fourth Amendment and also the First Amendment and some other of these scandals, and I say, how could anything like this be lawful when we have a Constitution?
Well, it shouldn't be lawful, but back to those congressmen and senators that you mentioned or didn't mention, and let's not specifically mention them by name, but there are certain congressmen who believe it is in your best interest to lie to you. and to keep secrets from you, specifically about how they are surveilling you. And I fundamentally disagree with those people. The other thing I would like to explain to the American public is the president went on TV and said every member of Congress knew about this program.
Yeah.
That is untrue.
That's a lie.
And that was the subject of our discussion yesterday in the classified briefing. Not everybody knew about it. There are about 20 members of Congress who are privileged to this information by virtue of the committees that they serve on.
Well, and as you just illustrated, Congressman, the guy that's heading up the whole organization, even if you were aware of it, you're being fed lies.
Yeah. And so the question is, how does the truth come out? And there are a lot of people that want a Monday morning quarterback. Well, Snowden should have done this. He should have done that. And we don't know all the information about Mr. Snowden. But there are people who ask, well, why didn't he come to a member of Congress? I'll tell you what. I'm fully convinced that there are members of Congress. If he had gone to them with this information, he'd be in the clink right now. He'd be in jail. His story would have not been released.
Wow.
If he had gone to the wrong members of Congress. And then the whistleblower protection that everybody talks about, their whistleblower statutes, they specifically exclude this type of information. There is no, as far as I understand, I've been discussing this with other congressmen, for the type of disclosure he made, there is no legal pathway to do that legitimately through a congressman like there is with other whistleblower statutes. That's as best as I know. So the question is, what do you expect him to do? And do you appreciate the information that he gave you, or would you rather be lied to about what your government is doing to surveil you?
Well, think about it. I would rather know this, and with good reason. It's the information. It's like labeling on a product. Product labeling. What's in it? What nutritional value does it have? What vitamins? Is there anything bad in it? If I know that, I can make an informed decision about whether or not I want to put it in my body. And the same thing goes with this. If we are told up front that if you use the internet, email communications, and I appreciate how impossible in modern technology it would, or in a modern day and age it would be to turn our backs on this. We'd have to become Luddites. But at least we would know and have the option. In this particular case, we had no knowledge ahead of time, and we were just voluntarily, without or unbeknownst to us, giving every little detail of our lives to an unseen, unknown giant computer database for future use. I'm sorry, that just doesn't sit well. I don't know how it sits well with anybody.
No, it shouldn't. If it does, you're in trouble. Because if the government can lie to you, first of all, they shouldn't be able to spy on American citizens who are not suspected of anything. That's the Fourth Amendment, and you've already touched on that. We fought a revolution over this. Although I will say on the House floor the other day, I heard one of my other members jokingly say, "Oh, you didn't know about the Fourth Amendment? They just put that in there to get the liberals to vote for the other stuff."
Nice. Congressman Massie, of course, we're going to have to contrast this bulk across the board, what I'll call spying, characterized as spying, done by the NSA without regard to political affiliation. Let's contrast that with targeting, and that ultimately becomes the biggest problem with bulk information and keeping it, because at some point something nefarious could happen or be used with that information. Apparently that's been going on over at the IRS. Don't go away. We'll continue with the Commonwealth of Kentucky's fighting forth, Congressman Thomas Massie, right after these brief words from my friends at Fasten Pro. 818 at 55 KRCD Talk Station. Brian Thomas with the Commonwealth of Kentucky's Congressman Thomas Massie joining me back on the 55 KRC Morning Show, regular contributor of comments and offerings. Congressman Massie, it's a pleasure to have you on the program as always. We talked a little bit about the NSA briefing yesterday. Of course, the specific details, the actual answers to questions you cannot reveal because it is confidential and it was done in a secure setting. But, of course, you and I share the same impression about the NSA and its targeting of Americans. We do have a Constitution. The Fourth Amendment still exists, and it is concerning to most people like me, Congressman Massie, because of the potential for abuse. Now, if you listen to John Boehner, oddly enough, he relied on the statements of the president to tell the American people that we shouldn't be worried about this. I think he could have been a little more artful or tactful about that, relying on a man that he had previously called, in essence, a liar. It doesn't seem to be like good salesmanship, Thomas, or Mr. Massie.
Well,
but
yeah, no, you can call me Thomas. I wouldn't rely on this administration either. Look, Do you trust them with the IRS information?
There you go.
Here's something else that I tell some of my friends who, by the way, I've got congressmen coming up to me saying, I was almost there with you on CISPA. I wanted to vote with you, but now I'm with you. This is it. This is it. This pushed me over the edge. And what I tell them is, you know what? If you accept the premise that the government can lie to you for your own good, then never expect to get an answer about Benghazi. Never expect to get an answer, because that's what I think they're doing right now on Benghazi. I think they've got information that they're trying to hold back.
Sure.
Because, for our own good. So they're going to lie to us about it. And that's it.
Well, I mean, let's look at it this way. It could conceivably be a criminal gun running operation that had been going on there, right? I mean, there's any number of things that there has to be a reason for a cover up, right?
You can let your imagination run free now that we know the government thinks it's okay to lie to
Exactly.
you. I mentioned CISPA. That was the Cyber Intelligence Sharing and Protection Act. That was specifically about this issue. People were saying, "Oh, well, we just want to know we just want your internet information. We don't want to know what was in your email." And it's the same thing, except phone records is what we're talking about here today. And I think CISPA, that legislation came to us because these private industry, internet providers were getting nervous. They're like, gee, my goodness, we're trampling all over their rights. We better get some kind of protection from the government before we keep doing this. And that's what CISPA was. It was to absolve all those corporations of any liability for infringing on our Fourth Amendment rights or breaking contracts.
Well, they're not allowed to talk about it anyway. I mean, look at the aftermath when Snowden comes out with this PRISM information and the NSA spying, and it shows that all of them, we have access, we, the government, in essence, have backdoor access, and call it backdoor, front door, call it side door, whatever. It's a matter of semantics. Their response is, we don't give anybody backdoor access, but if you step back from that and think about, like, Clinton, and it all depends on what the word is, right? There's one argument there. But the other one is, aren't they prevented by law from even mentioning this or discussing this anyway? So a lie is okay in the mind of the government when we hear it from Facebook telling us that they're not sharing information by way of the back door.
Well, there needs to be disclosure on this. We need to have a national discussion. They certainly need to disclose it to Congress. We're not even aware of this. Although you can extrapolate, you can look at some of these bills like the Patriot Act. We were sounding the alarm back when it was Bush's Patriot Act, and I sounded the alarm here on CISPA when we voted on that. What's coming up this week? The NDAA. All right, and the thing to be worried about in the NDAA is 2 years ago they allowed for indefinite detention. I wish it was attention. Yeah. Indefinite detention of Americans, and without a trial, without being convicted in the National Defense Authorization Act. We're still trying to get that fixed. That's coming. The NDAA is coming up for a vote this week.
Think about that. I mean, we're still trying to get that fixed. The idea of unlimited detention of American citizen, and you're trying to get it fixed. I mean, it got passed.
So when we find out, listen to this. So should we be surprised when we find out in a couple years that there's a camp with a bunch of Americans in it who've never had a trial? They got whisked away in the middle of the night, and nobody knew they were there. They just went missing. And the president, whoever that may be at the time, comes out and says, well, Congress authorized it.
It was the law. Yeah. It was totally lawful. Exactly. Congressman Massie, I'd love that. And again, people say, oh, roll their eyes. Come on, Congressman, you're just, blah. No, let's go back to the IRS. I'm going to be on Stuart Varney and Company today on Fox Business. They wanted to talk about this today, so they invited me on the program again. But the IRS specifically targeting groups based upon ideology. This sounds to me like fascist Nazi Germany to me.
Yeah, and the thing on the IRS, I hope people don't miss the big picture. It doesn't matter who's in power. That organization is going to be abused. It's ripe for abuse. There's 70,000 pages of tax code. We need to capitalize on the moment, on the outrage with the IRS, and say, simplify the tax code. Yes. Just go with a flat tax.
Flat tax. We don't need the agents. We won't need accountants. We won't need to bother with the hassles. Everyone will pay their tax or easily be found out. It's a piece of cake. It doesn't offer favoritism. It doesn't offer political cronyism. No carve-outs, no exceptions, no exclusions. Hey, it's the end of corruption.
Yep. So
there's no way you guys are going to vote for it.
Well, when you get here, you understand why things are broken, how they got broken, and the people that wrote those laws, they're raising their money, their campaign money, from the people that get the exemptions in the tax code, and it's going to be hard to unwind that.
It is.
They don't want to give that up because their positions here in Congress are predicated on how much money they can raise.
And they wouldn't be if you got rid of all that capital, that cronyism, and you got rid of the tax code and you had a flat tax, then their positions, you know what they'd be based on? They'd be based on their actions.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Wonderful.
Congressman Massie, real quick here, because your comments about the IRS and maybe going to a flat tax lead me to the logical question. The IRS is getting ready to have access to all of our health care. Isn't that a wonderful thing? Does this not serve as an opportune time, particularly given rate shock that's going on throughout this country with Obamacare? Ohio is going to see an 88% increase next year because of Obamacare. If that bad, California's getting the same thing. People aren't going to be able to afford insurance. People are going to have their hours cut back at work. People are going to get fired or have it dropped. It's cheaper to pay the penalty than buy insurance. There's no incentive to buy insurance anymore. The pre-X is gone. All of this spells absolute chaos and collapse. But back to the IRS, isn't this a golden opportunity with all of this Obamacare mess finally registering with the voters to maybe try to stick a fork in that, if for no other reason the IRS is responsible?
Absolutely. Look, it's going to be irreversible damage to this country, the Obamacare is, and it's supposed to be implemented by the IRS. As you point out, they're going to have 15,000 more agents to implement an aspect of it. I think we should hold tight on the next debt limit deal. The president's going to come to Congress and ask for another credit card, and we should say, no, we're not going to give you another credit card to implement Obamacare. Let's stop. Let's hold the line right there.
And isn't it amazing? You have the power of the purse. You could do this for any of the organizations. You could strangle the IRS financially, couldn't you?
We could achieve a lot of things by holding the purse strings a little bit tighter here in Congress. The problem is our folks here are. I don't want to implicate anybody.
No, we all know who they are.
Right. They don't want to take a stand, and they're afraid to get a black eye in the media. Well, look, the president right now, his approval ratings are at an all-time low. I don't think we should worry about doing the right. We should do the right thing and not worry about it. Okay?
That should be the springboard every day, and maybe therein lies the problem. We, as Americans, are not electing people that have a spine. They do not have character. We are electing people without character. We are electing people who get easily manipulated and swayed by the dangling carrot of lobbyist dollars.
Yep. But I'll tell you what, daylight is a wonderful antiseptic, and we're seeing so much daylight these days. I hope we double the daylight up here.
I'm with you. Keep it up, Thomas. Or I keep wanting to call you Thomas. Congressman Massie, right, you are always a welcome guest on my program.
Radio personality, Thomas.
Appreciate your refreshing candor, and I'll look forward to talking to you again real soon.
Thank you.
Congressman Massie, 827-55 KRC, the talk station. Quick word for Emory Federal Credit Union.